España, soy director de transformación digital de Banco Sabadell y en primer lugar pues quiero agradecer a Nicolás y a GeneXus la invitación para estar en este evento tan...
Thank you very much for the invitation to be in this very important event. I imagine that the first thing you're going to wonder is who is Clara, because the title is Think Difference, I work for Clara. And Clara could be any one of the persons present here. Clara is our customer because we think that the key element of digital transformation is not technology, it's the use of the technology, the people who use the technology. And with this, technology, of course, facilitates that we can follow this path, but we have to think that the final objective, as you will see in the presentation, is actually the experience of the client. The client is the big winner. But before introducing Clara, very quickly, I'm going to explain something about the bank, Sabadell, and give you some figures so that you have an order of magnitude. We are not the third company, we are the fourth bank entity in Spain. Nicolas has put us one position up, but we will be there sometime. There has been a very quick progression and we are growing very fast. We do universal banking. We have about 11 million clients and almost 3,000 offices spread throughout the territories that you will see in a minute. Most of our business is in Spain, it's 72% of our business, and now we bought a bank in the UK, GSB, which accounts for 22% of our banks. We are very much interested also in the US market. Although we are only at a 6%, we have a lot of interest in growing in many countries, including here, where hand in hand with Bank Total and GeneXus, we are working and entering this market. As I said before, our growth has been very quick. During these last 10 years, we incorporated 12 different entities, national and international. And you see the accumulated annual growth, which is 18%. Besides this, we have industrialized the process of integration. We have become in Spain a benchmark of the integration process, going from the initial periods of about 2 years to very short periods during which we have been able to acquire and integrate in our own system the organizations that we are buying. Another fundamental aspect is our innovative DNA. Since the beginning, this organization has been interested in doing things differently. We are the first bank in Spain that had an iPad application and also the first one who had an Android and a hackathon so that the developers could participate in the development of various apps. We've done things that work and others that work less. And I'm going to give you a few examples. We were the first one in the world to have an application or to make an application for the Google Glass. And we went ahead of ourselves in some way because it's not being used widely. But we have to see what works and what does not, and thus progress. The information at the bottom refer to the Spanish market, but at the moment 85% of operational transactions are carried out outside of the offices. Although Spain is a country where we have a lot of offices, 2,800, 85% of the transactions are done electronically. In sales, we see that we are at 18%, but more and more people and the clients are getting used to this way of working. We have also managed to make our application the one that's best valued, and this has been the case for the last 4 years. This is an overview of the bank. What is the banking context in Spain and in Europe and almost in the whole world? we are facing a risk of complete disruption. The limits between the various industries are diluting more and more, and our competitors are not the banks, Google, Apple, Amazon. All these are competitors, and they are changing the rules of the game and the regulations. But mostly, and the most significant thing is that the clients are changing the way in which they interact with the banks. And the expectations are the same, whether it's a bank or any kind of industry. So when something works in any entity, they expect the same thing from banks. What are the bank's assets? Here we have a list of bank assets in general, a large client basis, scale, expertise, liquidity, capital, compliance, knowledge. And the question is this going to be enough so that we can stand this eruption of others? The answer clearly is no. We have to do things differently. And I have selected two sentences I like a lot. One from Charles Darwin, which says that it's not the strongest or the most intelligent species that survives, but the one that can have more capacity to adapt. And Henry Ford said, the vision without execution is just an hallucination. I think that we have a lot of visionaries and consultants who have a vision, but what is really complicated and complex is the implementation, to have a plan that allows us to implement quickly and efficiently. In this case, what are our difference and competitive advantages? We have a long-term vision. One of our publicity claims are long-term relationships with clients. We want to accompany our clients. Excellence in the services. Often we say good service because from the point of view of customer satisfaction, our bank has always been among the first ones in Spain. Capacity to adapt. This is related to the implementation capacity. And in the graph that I showed you before, where we saw that during the last 10 years, we integrated 12 financial entities, shows that we have the capacity to implement the visions we have. And finally, innovation culture. It's in our DNA, as I said, we have this will to test new things, to innovate, and then I will show you more in detail what this innovation is about. So the challenge of transformation in order to turn threats into opportunities is absolutely necessary, and execution and implementation are necessary, but always focused on the client. And now I'm going to introduce Clara. One day, one of the board members, our CEO, sent an email to all our employees saying, I work for Clara and so do you. And this was a very clear message. The focus is the client. And this is the email. So we're going to watch a video.
Esta es Clara, clienta de Banco Sabadell.
This is Clara, one of our clients. She goes shopping, she plans her next trip, talks to her friends, and she does it anywhere and at any point. Our clients are changing, and so are we, in order to be closer to our clients wherever they are. And thinking of Clara, we have drawn this transformation plan, 6 ambitious initiatives that allow us to be by her side with a cultural change that makes us every day more agile, comfortable, and efficient. A path that we are all traveling together as one team, as one person. In this path, our branches are expanding, and Clara can choose the one that is more convenient to her and receive in specialized offices specialized advice, for example, how to manage her net worth. Clara can also do most transactions from her mobile, transferring money, paying for coffee, hiring another product, or chatting with us. So the time we save can be invested in looking for more and better solutions. Clara is so illusioned about buying a house that she is checking mortgages online, and thanks to our alert system, we can prepare a personalized offer for her. This brings us closer to Clara. She also owns a coffee shop. For her, her clients are the most important thing, and our bank wants to take care of them too so that they can make their banking transactions through us with these new tools that allow us to go wherever she is with the operations of her office under her arm. This is big progress. The day-to-day of our bank is full of difficult places, but we are reducing, for example, the contract to open an account from 40 to 4 pages. Or she can have her bank account number stable even if she changes the branch. Another big step we are transforming in order to be closer to Clara and our clients. I changed the start with you so that together we can improve your experience and build a long-term and fruitful relationship. And in this relationship is Clara and you, of course, because in our bank we count on you to be one of the main players of this big transformation. Sabadell is wherever you are. Thank you very much. In this video, there are 3 messages which I think are very significant. Firstly, we focus on the client. That's clear. These 5 initiatives that I will explain in more detail will show that we focus on the client in reality, and it's just a marketing slogan. So this is not a publicity video for the public. It was a video we made for our employees so that they would be the first ones to understand that we have to transform. So the first point is clear. We focus on the client. Secondly, we have a plan. And behind all this, there is a plan. This is a roadmap that contains all these initiatives in which the various divisions have to cooperate. And this is what sets a difference vis-a-vis others and allow us to focus on execution and implementation. Secondly, we transform from the inside. At the end of the video, it says, we count on you. It's very good to change services and processes and way to relate with our clients from inside out. But we also have to change inside the bank. We have to transform our culture. That is why we have all these levers that are fundamental. And for a long time, we've been saying that the client is at the center of our activities, but that's not true. Sometimes we've talked about multi-channels and saying that the client can relate to the bank through various channels, but sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand does. So now we are actually in the position of seeing the client in a comprehensive manner. We are using the concept of omnichannels, but whatever the name is, the important thing is that the client is at the center of interaction. In this slide, you see what Nicolas said in his keynote speech when he discussed the concepts of evolutions in the automotive industry. We are going from a model of products and ownership to a model of services. So I trust the Excel spreadsheet he named. It can be a 50%, but more and more, it doesn't make much sense to have an inefficient model as the one we usually have. So the evolution model, not from ownership towards service, makes a lot of sense. Implementation. From my point of view, vision is 1% and implementation is 90 or more of everything we're doing. In integration processes, as I said, we managed to create a methodology that allowed us to integrate entities quickly and efficiently, and the market valued it. In the case of transformation, we also think it can be done, although innovation requires other kinds of skills. It is possible to industrialize in some way this manner of working. And we had 2 choices. One was to create a separate company, a spin-off to a small company, giving some resources to this new organization to test the new system. And the other way was to make the change within our own company. You may have a big transatlantic ship with a lot of crew and passengers, but you can also have a speedboat to do certain things. And the other thing would be to change the whole transatlantic ship. And that's what we decided to do, because a speedboat can move very quickly, but the clients and the employees are in the big ship. So it may be difficult to transform a huge ship, especially when it's at sea, but we think that this is the right path to follow. And in order to achieve this, one aspect is fundamental, and that's what we call the single roadmap, which is based on cooperation. 2 years ago, I was lucky enough to attend an event in Boston, and those who offered the presentations were the Garo, who is here present, who was extraordinary and helped us to understand conflict resolution. And we also were able to practice with various tools in order to do things faster and solve conflicts, because all this has to be done quickly because things are changing very fast. The last day, we had the big lesson from Mr. Julio De Caro. The most important element is trust. Trust is what breaks barriers that make projects difficulties. What have we achieved? The business units and the technology units now work in cooperation, and this is fundamental. Nicolas talked about the what and the how. Sometimes those who know the what are the business units, and those who know the how are the technology units. If they work together, the projects go faster. These roadmaps that we've seen with all these capabilities include about 30 projects, some big, some small, but at the end of the day, the responsibility is shared between the various divisions of the bank, and this allows us to make progress at a very good rhythm. Now, there's only one slide about one aspect, but which could take me the 3 days of the conference because it's fundamental. It's change management. I said before that the final objective is the customer's experience, but there's no experience if there's no experience among the employees. If our people, our 28,000 employees, cannot understand that this is the right path and convince the clients that they have to go in this direction, then change is very difficult. So we have focused on change management, communicating well, mobilizing, informing our staff so that they feel they participate in this change. This, we count on you, that we saw in the video, is addressed to the employees, which are part of the transformation. We even appointed a group of people that we call change ambassadors that help us in these dynamics, because it's not easy to change this part of the culture. When I talked about the roadmap, its services and processes vis-a-vis the public, but internally it's organization and culture. I've read that it takes 7 years to change the culture in a company, but we don't have that long. We need people who can get on board of the train much faster. So everything that I've explained, these 6 initiatives, are part of a plan that will take 3 years and at the end of the current year. Then we will start another one, but it's called Triple in transformation, profitability, and internationalization. These are the 3 big focuses for the bank at the moment. And as I said before, I'm going to give you very quickly an idea of the various aspects that came out in the video about Clara, to show you that it is not marketing, it's execution, it's implementation, and clear objectives. Firstly, simplification. I heard a speaker say once that God made the world in 7 days because there was no legacy. When there's a legacy, it's much more complicated, and in the case of a bank, one thing is what you see, and the other thing is what you don't, like an iceberg. And this is much more complex. The second is much more complex. So there's work to do in this regard, and here Syntec has a lot of work ahead because they start from scratch. They're not conditioned by clients and a lot of difficulty. And that's where we can learn a lot, because what Syntec is doing is to position itself in the part of the value chain that offers this value to the clients. So we are obliged to simplify. My boss says, look at the iPhone. The virtue of the iPhone is that it's very easy to use. The complexity is inside. And that's what we have to achieve. Organizations that at least are easy to use. And we have to do the utmost to give the customer this experience. We have reduced, for example, the average time for granting credits by 30%, or the pages of the contract from 40 to 4 pages. We would like to have contracts with 0 page, but there are certain regulations we have to abide by. Then, digital accompaniment. And I think that this leads often to confusion. People believe sometimes that to digitalize is just changing the way in which you relate to the bank. It's like saying that digitalizing education is putting iPads in schools, but this is not enough. It's just an access stage, a stage during which the client sees and has a visual of the entity in that manner, but it's not enough. We are offering 70% of our progress through remote channels. Our app has been one of the most valued in the market, and 17 hours per day, the mobile application is the most widely used. We have a very clear strategy of mobile first. In the case of Spain, which is the country in which there's a higher density of offices, we wanted to find a model in which we would be close to the client. In the past, we had a lot of offices. In Spain, they say there are a lot of branches and lots of bars. People say, if you created a bank from scratch, would you create it with or without branches? Well, I don't know, but in our case, we have many branches and we can use them and benefit from this fact. And in this chapter that we call our distribution model is to group the branches, so much so that we can have a differential treatment with them. We have a hub in which we have offices, some of them specialized in services, other in operation matters. And then we have active management. That means you don't need to go to the branch. You have a personal manager that you can contact by mobile phone, or that you can contact for a certain period of time, and then you go to what we call the direct office, and the clients are very satisfied with this way of working. Now, one of our mottos is our bank is where the clients are. That is also in the video, and this can be in the office or in a virtual space. The remote client for us is exactly the same as the client that goes to our branches.
We have improved our proposal of value and services, and that's my idea of being where you are. We have recently deployed this type of devices. We have tablets, and we go to the client's place, and we can do anything in operations or transactions there. These are projects that are not technological projects exclusively. There is a technological difficulty, questions of security, coverage, when we've got the device, Well, 5 months later, they tell us that they're not going to be producing this device any longer, and so we have to evolve and we have to check which is the new device and whether it works or not. But apart from that, there is a fundamental issue there, and it's quite different from the bank clerk who is there serving you in his office, whether he comes away from his comfort zone and goes to your place. So there is an initiative there that is not technology. It has to do with training, awareness, and so on. Data. All right. I think that you all know that internet isn't free. We pay them. We pay it with our data. Everyone wants to have data. And in fact, all this issue of digital transformation, one of the business models that is clear is everything that refers to data. That is where you buy, where you move, how frequent. Everyone wants to know that. Everyone wants to put a chip. They want to put a chip in my car. It's not this chip, it's their chip. And when you fill your tank in a gas station, they can have your information, they can use it afterwards. I think that technology here is increasing the capacity enormously to be able to process information, a lot of information, very rapidly. However, in general terms, there is an important point, and that is to know how to use it well. Many times we are too intrusive with our customers. To have information doesn't mean that you have to bombard your clients with information. I think that this road towards digitalization makes us mix older models with new models. What was done before? Well, you would distribute mails massively and everyone would receive an email. And there are things that are not interested for people and they simply eliminate them. We should use that analytic capacity not only to segment and have clear in mind what a client likes, but we should have mechanisms so as not to be too intrusive. So when a client has complained because the service was bad in something, let's wait for a couple of days until we send him another product. I mean, this type of intelligence, which is not that difficult, sometimes gives you the feeling that it's longer term than shorter term. We're going to bombard him and we are going to be present. Well, we have to turn the screw there. As I said earlier, well, at the end of the day, it boils down to our customer. There is an indicator, NPS, which measures client satisfaction, customer satisfaction. Now, the first thing is to remind ourselves of this internally. How can we do this? Well, all the employees, starting down from the CEO has a variable indexed to the CPS. And then we have also set a goal, and the goal is to be leaders in Spain in all segments with an NPS indicator. We are leaders in SMEs and in large companies, but we would also like to be leaders in private individuals. And I would like to recall what I said earlier. Customer satisfaction is fine, but what we really have to look for is the employee satisfaction, because he is the interlocutor, he is the go-between, and we must do whatever necessary so that that person feels part of this transformation. There is a very normal factor that comes in, and that's fear. What's going to happen with me? How long is this transformation going to take? What's going to happen with my position? Now, in fact, many of our employees, when they talk about digital channels, would say the other channels, the alternative channels. We don't want to talk about alternative channels. The bank, the client decides how to relate with our bank. So we have to change our frame of mind that it's the employee who in some way wants the client to relate to him. Well, no, the client must relate with the bank. The client is not the office's client, it's not the bank's client, it's the bank that is the client, and we have to give our clients this freedom. Now, how How are we focusing on this? Well, future of our transformation must become a reality. After all this exercise, the last 3 axes, when we are in the final stage of this triple plan or triple plan, that so that our roadmap progresses in the right direction and we achieve what I've just explained, we are dealing with our next 3-year plan, and we have to decide how to move forward. We have clearly thought of a fundamental issue, which continues being our integrated actions with our clients, and that's block 1. Block 2 is our new business models. We have to look for new business models. The one we've got at present isn't sustainable. Interest rates, regulations, competition makes it an unsustainable model. So we've got to look for new business models. And I insist on what I said earlier. There are many people who mix up digitalization with putting in layers. Now, layers is something that we've all used. Banks wanted to produce our assets, and when I was mentioning the iceberg, well, you know, the assets are enormous. There are thousands of applications. What have we done? Well, whenever we've needed it, we've put in layers. We've added layers. And the moment we add a multi-channel layer to be able to work on different channels, well, we needed to use documentation in a different format. And so we added the layer of documentation management. Then we realized we had to work on processes better. And so we added another layer to manage these processes. And so we introduced flow managers. So what we've been doing so far is to introduce one and another layer to protect ourselves, more and more layers. You know the story about Microsoft and Apple. Microsoft decided to put in more layers. Apple said, I'm not going to go on, I'm going to change my architecture, I'm going to do things differently. And I think that we're getting nearer, because this question of layers introduces complexities, security, cost, maintenance. Digitalization destroys and builds business models, and we have to go much further. It's not just putting in layers. Then on the other hand, we have the innovation culture, and that's fundamental. We have to be able to attract talent, and we have to make people work differently, because we've got the means to work in a different way. Very briefly, let me explain these issues to you. Someone mentioned Internet of Things. This is a door open up to ad infinitum. It's going to allow us for immense possibilities. It will allow us to program the world, and it will happen in a way that will be absolutely invisible and transparent. We are used to devices that allow us to interact, but with Internet of Things, we'll have sensors and markers, and if we use them correctly, with this invisible technology, we'll have further control and efficiency. I always say that, my mother is 75 years old. 5 years ago, I gave her an iPad. We live in different cities, and it was good to make video conferences, to look for information, to read, so she could do all those things. I never had any expectation that she would use it to go to the supermarket and buy products, because, she's a bit old, and then 3 months ago, I tried virtual reality glasses, and I thought, and I could see that those barriers disappear. You put on some virtual reality glasses, you go into the supermarket, you pick up the products and you put them in a virtual basket. Those barriers disappear. There's no age there. So this is opening up an absolutely different dimension. I, for one, believe that, some years ago, what was really attractive about technology was the military thing, military operations. There were lots of investments there, and there was progress, GPS, that kind of thing. Now, at present, that's something different. It's consumption, it's people. So the market is ad infinitum. And then you open up your platforms, and I'm going to explain that later on, so that anyone can develop something. So this is no longer linear, this is exponential. And there are many elements here that facilitate that. We've tested it, it's just a test. We have a sort of Rubik cube. Fernando Paniza was explaining about the Apoco or something, I don't know the name of his app, but this is something that you interact with your phone, and if you turn it around, you know, you can say, all right, my dream is to start traveling and I'll start saving, or it gives me the information about my account. So imagine this cube doing all these things. So we're going to pilot it now. Probably we're not going to be able to compete with these competitors here, with Amazon and so on. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We have learned a lot. We have learned to develop new apps. The process of developing and thinking, we're going to be able to voice our opinion directly. We want this to be projected, you know, on our walls at home. I mean, a manager, all these ideas, all these thoughts have allowed us to think what things are meaningful and which are not. And so we have to accept that there are things that are going to work out, others that are not. As regards new distribution models, I mean business models, there is a concept here which is fundamental, and I'm persuaded that in these sessions, in this GeneXus days, we're going to be talking about a bank as a platform, the concept of platform, the concept of opening up to the outside world. In Europe, there's going to be a directive in place called C2, which forces financial entities to open our interfaces up so that other banks, other information suppliers or transactions can interact. Why? Well, because you want to increase competition, and this is going to be very positive. What are we doing there? We are not only going to open the apps that they are asking us for, but we're going to have many more. I suppose that there are certain developers here who may be interested in building their own apps. Well, once they do, they won't have to resort to more, let's say, less robust, like web scraping or something of the sort, which has many security problems involved. So here, as I said earlier, we have opened up apps, and we've got 17 apps developed by external developers. There are some security protocols followed that are very strict, and we're doing it in the same way as Apple. If you want to put something in Apple Store, you have to put up an application, follow some security controls, and so on and so forth. Now, we have created a protocol that ensures that in no way whatsoever will the customer information be at risk. But at the same time, we are able to add value to our clients' needs. Now, one of the worlds where we've been working on, it has to do with very useful information, and one of the successful developments is what we call Kelvin. Kelvin comes from the fact that what you can't measure doesn't exist, and so we have this anonymous information provided to our clients so that they can have information about their competition, what they do this, how they do it, when. And so what we've got is a command, a dashboard, to understand how your business is doing. So the good thing is that you don't have to work with something in particular. You can work statistically. Culture and innovation. Well, we need to attract talent. We are quite used and we feel very comfortable when we work with people who think like us, and that's a mistake. We need people who think absolutely differently from us, who can help us to come from a to come out from our comfort zone, who can help us to envisage things differently. Now, this is very easy to say, difficult to do. Everything requires a process and learning and training. It requires tolerance. It requires trust. Let people make mistakes. It requires the generation of an attractive environment so that people who have their own ideas of doing things in a certain way feel at ease and are interested in coming in. We are also changing our working methodologies, and we are introducing what we call agile methodologies. There is evidence that this can produce quite a lot of savings when doing things. And that's true, but it also requires a significant effort. It requires to touch on something that is complex, and that's the organization and culture. And this means that, well, you've got two typical methodologies. What we like EI, and we want to have the best of both worlds. And we know that when you buy this, it has its inconveniences. Well, this means you have to change your way of thinking, your way of working. And we have set up a lab. We call it Digital Lab. It's a few square meters, probably too few, just 25 square meters. But it's like a little seed where we are making aware, we are raising awareness in our organization that we have to do things differently. For a project we have in London, where we are integrating the entity that we've acquired, we are building a digital lab that is much bigger so that we can do that work in a collaborative manner. Let me finish my talk with two slides, which are the ones that I start with. But I had to introduce myself, I had to introduce my bank, and I had to introduce Clara. And so I left these two transparencies for the end. You all know this gentleman, Steve Jobs. I think that Steve Jobs would have liked to attend Nicolas' talk because, as you know, he had this will to do things differently, to change. Now, Mr. Steve Jobs changed all these industries: computers, music, telephone, cables, retail. In 1997, he made a video that most certainly, when I show it to you, you will all recognize it. Its motto was "Think Different." Please, let's watch this video.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Seguro que...
Most certainly, you've realized that it doesn't talk about technology. It didn't say anything about the processor speed, the capacity of the disk. It talked about people. It talked about those who use this technology. And in some way, it encourages them to change the world. That is all. Thank you for your attention.